away side that we had with Toronto last year, there's more chance, I think, of a mid-table side. Well, I suppose Ashton was top try scorer last year as well, weren't he?
Yeah, you're looking for somebody who's not going to get himself crocked. And see, my initial reaction would be Hitchcock's, but then again, he does also, sometimes carry an injury. It wouldn't be a bad shout. But yeah, they've brought in some kind of, as you say, some recent Super League experience, haven't they, to kind of bolster their numbers. So yeah, their squad's probably, as you say, I think I said much of a muchness, but you can make an argument to say that they're a little bit better this year.
Certainly, say with Sean Robinson and Jody Broughton, they might well have the best wing combination in the competition. Featherstone, you're a big fan of Featherstone this year then. Brett Ferris is a big name as well as Craig Hall.
I'm not a big fan of him, but yeah.
Which one of their big name incomings then are you most impressed with them being able to land? Dale Ferguson, of course. He's been a long time Super League player. Maybe not played a lot in the last 2 years because of injuries, but...
I think on the this is not the answer to the question you just asked, but I'm going to say it anyway. But I will answer your question. Louis Jouffre is going to be a good player for them. Kind of, not necessarily somebody who's particularly well known outside the Championship, but he did some very good for Batley last year. Getting Craig Hall, though, to me, that's he could definitely have landed up at any kind of Super League team as far as I was concerned. So he's a good signing for me.
We've kind of broken down Dewsbury's squad, and I don't think they've really signed anyone from the Super League other than Chris Anakin, who was there a bit on loan, hard-working player. He'll certainly give a great competitive edge to that side, won't he? Yeah,
as I said, for me, they're subtly better than last year, so creeping up the table, but not massively different.
Anthony England's a big name player that has come into Bradford. I mean, he's played in Super League now for probably about 8 years or so with Warrington and with Wakefield. But you're not impressed?
Yeah, I mean, no, it's nothing against the lad at all. What I'm saying is the balance between the outs and the ins that's my main concern.
And then finally, Batley, Sean Lunt, I suppose, is the name that jumps out as a big name signing. Back end of his career for certain, but big name signing for this side.
Yeah, no, he should do a good job. And I've got again, he's not a big name, he's not particularly glamorous, but I do like Lucas Walshaw. He did a good job for us for a year. Always looked reasonable while he was playing at Dewsbury as well. Good, solid second rower, the kind of player that you need. And I've got a soft spot for Batley and Dewsbury. You just know that. But I don't think they'll be as bad as everyone fears this year.
Fair enough. Okay, let's talk a little bit about League One then. We sort of, on the predictions, Newcastle got 81% of the votes as one of the two teams that will be going up next into the Championship. Doncaster had 42%. Barrow, one of the relegated sides, had 25%. There wasn't too much of a mixture from us guys, really, was there? Doncaster and Newcastle was what Sarah, Tim and yourself went with, and I threw Keithley into the Newcastle situation there. I suppose the two real talking points, do we think the relegated sides will be able to push sides like Newcastle, Doncaster, Keighley and I suppose Hunslet as well would be in that conversation? Do we think the relegated sides have retained enough strength to do that? Do we think Rochdale have gained a lot more solidity off the field now with a board in place who kind of know what they're doing? And then Barrow obviously are a yo-yo side, aren't they? So can they be back up at the top end of that yo-yo?
Yeah, I mean, answer that. My instinct is that the teams that are kind of more established in League One are probably the best placed ones to actually go up. Newcastle being the best example of that in terms of the investment that they've put in. And to me, Doncaster have always been knocking on the door. Conversely, Rochdale, it's a rebuilding job, isn't it? So it'd be interesting to see how they get on in the Cup. Barrow will be there or thereabouts, but yeah. Funnily enough, when you talked about it on the show, I was more and more convinced that actually Keighley might be that second team, because they have been putting a lot of investment in. They've come back from a very difficult year last year, kind of in the rebuilding phase. But I do think they're on the way back, I would say. So they could very easily be that second promoted team. But if it's anyone other than Newcastle, clearly as the top, then there's something wrong about their structure.
Yeah, last
I would
year
argue.
we were expecting them to be top as well, weren't we? And they didn't deliver. So you're right. There'd be some serious question marks. And with Keighley, I do wonder what will happen with, Lovegrove's a quite new coach on the scene in a way. And will the board there expect too much too soon if they don't hit the ground running? Will there be itchy trigger fingers there, because it feels like a club that's just waiting to become unstable again at times, the Cougars, the way they go about the business. But I don't expect that to happen this year. But yeah, I do agree with what you're saying, that the established teams who know the way around that division's a little bit different, with the long road trips more than anything else. I know the Championship clubs. I know Barrow are used to long road trips because they're Barrow. They're an hour from anywhere. But I think the long road trips you've got, London, West Wales, Newcastle, Cumbria a couple of times a year, they're long trips to go on from the Heartland clubs. But these guys have done that routine. They know that routine, these sides. So I think that's probably, like you say, going to stand them in good stead maybe against the relegated teams who are in a bit of a rebuild. What about the unfancied teams? Will any of them challenge? I mean, the Scholars flirted with challenging for the first half of the last two seasons, really. North Wales will throw into the mix. They have their day, don't they? But they don't have their day often enough. Coventry have had some fantastic results in the last 18 months. Obviously, we're big fans of what they do, but whether or not they've done enough to strengthen, and then obviously West Wales Raiders, are they going to get more than that one solitary win this season? Is there going to be progress there? What do you expect from these southern teams plus North Wales?
Yeah, let's call them expansion. I don't expect much more than we had this year. I would like to see more from Coventry. I'd like to see them push on to the next level. I just think there's been too much change in the off-season in terms of coaching and player changeover for them to actually take a step forward. I still think you're going to be looking at them winning maybe 6 to 8 games, maybe, on the outside. Scholars, I think, as you say, will be there or thereabouts, probably just above them, and maybe the best of the rest. As you say, North Wales, they never really convinced me as a team that's going to deliver on a consistent basis. And on a genuine point, I hope West Wales kind of continue to build and become more competitive. But ultimately, I don't necessarily see a Southern team regularly challenging. Although that doesn't say we won't get the odd surprise again this year, because I do think that'll continue. It's an interesting year this year. Obviously, it's scheduled as a league to change next year in terms of membership, so it's an opportunity for teams to get up, isn't it? Well, before the structure changes yet again. Touch wood. Or is proposed to change anyway. So it's an opportunity, but unfortunately, I don't see any of the Southern teams be ready to take that up as it stands.
No, I fear that they won't, because, like you say, there's going to be an extra intensity of the push for those other teams that feel like they are a step above already with their history, their community setups, etc. So we shall see. Interesting and exciting. We'll talk a little bit more about League One next week with Tim when we do some of our predictions next week for the games. We'll slip in a little bit of League One chat with Tim as well, just to get his input. He'll certainly be able to tell us how things have been developing at some of those London and Midlands clubs. So we'll see how that goes. We're now going to move on to the Say Whaaatt predictions. So shall I do it again? I don't know how well it's coming across. The Say Whaaatt. I think my voice is getting more distorted every time I try it, Alan. But basically, these are the predictions that are supposed to make us laugh a little bit, supposed to make us say you're crazy, but actually might come true. We've mostly filtered out the ones that are just, I think it's a surprise that such and such a good team will have a bad season, etc. If you've made those sorts of predictions in this section, then you'll get your sort of recognition if it happens at the end of the year. We'll make sure we call that out when we do our season recap show, because we always look back at these with great joy at that stage of the season and see who was the closest to something kind of bizarre happening. But instead, we've picked out some of the more interesting ones, some funny, some not as funny, but worthy of maybe a little quick chat. And I'm going to start with my own. I've done mine as a 3-tiered one. Okay, so my first one is that Toronto's away games are going to have a better average attendance figure than Huddersfield and Wakefield away games. That might disappoint or upset or anger a few. This one might make everyone happy, and certainly if it happens, many people will be. But Ralph to fall on his sword with the RFL making an outside appointment to take over at the top in that chief exec position. And finally, I think my favourite one that I came up with, and possibly the most likely to happen, but English players to win the Man of Steel Award, the Dally M, and the Golden Boot Awards in 2020.
I think that's possibly even more of a stretch than your first one, but yeah, good luck with that one. It
relies on us beating the Aussies and Canberra having a good year again, but, you know.
It's possible. It's possible.
What about yourself? What have you seen fit?
Okay, so I think you can guess what I was doing. Well, what was on in the background while I made this little prediction. But I said, we see the obvious success of VAR and adopt the system wholeheartedly, binning the current video referee system. Pitches end up with more lines drawn on them than Lamport Stadium. So we need to get some more of that VAR in our lives. There's just not enough of it. It's nice to see another sport convulsed. Yeah, in the kind of things that we've been going through, and it shows that it's not actually a rugby league thing. It's just a sport thing, isn't it?
What I enjoy most about it as well is, for all these years, football fans have been saying it works in rugby, so let's do it. When there's been, some noisy minorities within rugby saying get rid of it. All codes, all types, all sorts of overball games. But, in Rugby League we get that. But now they're doing it and they're saying it works in Rugby League, why aren't we doing it like they're doing it? So they still seem to have got it wrong. The
trouble is that I genuinely think VAR is being too precise with the line drawing. I think the way that we do it with like offsides and stuff like that, we'll look at it and go, yeah, that's all right. Yeah, that's okay. We won't draw lines on the pitch and go.
An on-field call was actually made, so the referee would turn to his touch judges and say, do we think he was onside? Yeah, we think he was onside. Right, we'll send it up.
Yes, exactly. Rather than, oh, look, he's got an elbow off, in front of the player, therefore he's offside type. Rubbish.
Yeah, the armpit offsides that we've experiencing. Yeah, I think it's just nice to feel like we've got it more right than some other sports, and I hope we, like you say, don't go into that
exactly
armpit of despair.
This is the thing, money's a dangerous thing, isn't it? The VAR is obviously very expensive to implement, I would guess. And they haven't got it right. They've spent a lot of money on it, and it hasn't worked. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. But yeah, anyway, there you go.
Let's move away from the round ball game and get back to some of our predictions. These ones from our wonderful listeners and followers. And we're going to start with Champ and a Half.